Caleb Morris hadn't taken a good night's sleep since he returned from his last deployment. The nightmares came like clockwork. Fire, blood, screams, memories as vivid as photographs he wished he could burn. At 42, the acclaimed war photographer had seen more than most could endure, leaving him haunted and hollow. Determined to find peace, Caleb left the chaos of city life behind, purchasing a remote cabin nestled in the shadow of Colorado's Rocky Mountains. Here, he hoped the tranquil forests and crisp mountain air could finally silence the ghosts of his past. Life in the small town of Pine Ridge moved slowly. Residents eyed Caleb with suspicion when he arrived, a solitary figure always clutching an old Nikon camera, its scratched body a testament to years spent in war zones. At the local diner one rainy afternoon, as Caleb stared into a half-empty coffee mug, he overheard two older hunters whispering about a place called Whisper Hollow. Their voices trembled slightly, cautioning each other about never venturing there again. Caleb turned, his curiosity piqued. "Excuse me," he interrupted. "What exactly is Whisper Hollow?" The older of the two hunters, gray-bearded and weary-eyed, eyed Caleb skeptically before finally answering. "It's a valley deep in the woods. Beautiful place. Wildflowers, crystal-clear lakes, but strange things happen there. Folks vanish. Some say it's cursed." Caleb felt a familiar rush, a dangerous attraction to the unknown that had driven him to every frontline battlefield. "Disappearances?" he pressed. "Has anyone looked into them?" The younger hunter frowned. "Sure, people looked. But whoever goes after those lost never returns. Just gone. No trace." The old man shook his head solemnly. "If you know what's good for you, stay clear." But Caleb had spent his life ignoring warnings, chasing the untold stories, the dangerous beauty of places others feared. That night, sleep eluded him again, replaced by visions of mysterious valleys and unanswered riddles. Before dawn broke, he packed his gear, camera, lenses, survival kit, and set out toward Whisper Hollow, ignoring the unease gnawing at his gut. As Caleb left town, he passed the diner once more. Through the rain-streaked window, the old hunter watched him go, shaking his head sadly as Caleb disappeared into the fog-shrouded mountains, oblivious to the quiet whispers of the valley that awaited him. The early morning mist clung to the rugged slopes of the Rocky Mountains, blanketing the forest in an eerie, muted calm. Caleb Morris adjusted his heavy backpack, breathing deeply as he stepped into the wilderness. He had waited days for the perfect light, that pale dawn glow photographers chased obsessively. Now, it finally stretched across the sky, filtering through the fog and casting a ghostly luminescence over Whisper Hollow. Caleb felt a familiar shiver of anticipation and dread ripple down his spine. The townspeople had spoken of this place with trembling voices and furtive glances, their stories heavy with warnings. But Caleb, long used to navigating danger in war-torn regions, brushed off their fears. He'd faced worse, at least that's what he kept telling himself. He walked deeper into the forest, camera at the ready. Every step was accompanied by a crunch of dead leaves and the snap of twigs beneath his boots, sounds that seemed unnaturally loud in the hollow silence of the valley. Around him, ancient trees rose like sentinels guarding their secrets, their gnarled branches twisted into strange shapes that seemed almost intentional. Caleb paused by a fog-cloaked lake, its surface mirror-like yet disturbingly opaque. He knelt down, steadied his camera, and framed a shot of the surreal landscape. Through the viewfinder, he watched shapes slowly emerge, shadows in the mist, indistinct and shifting. He clicked the shutter once, twice, 3 times, capturing the ethereal dance of figures he convinced himself were merely tricks of the light. Satisfied, Caleb rose and moved on, but the forest around him felt increasingly alive. Distorted bird calls pierced the fog, echoing in unsettling harmony. He turned toward the sound, capturing an image of a bird he'd never seen before, its wingspan unnaturally wide, eyes luminous and too human-like. Caleb lowered his camera slowly, heart hammering with the unsettling sense that he wasn't merely observing, but being observed. Then, from the corner of his eye, he glimpsed a massive silhouette lurking at the forest's edge. He turned sharply, pulse quickening. Caleb's military training snapped him into heightened awareness. He watched carefully, breath held. The shape remained still for a moment before shifting subtly, large and bulky like a moose or bear. But there was something off about the movement, too deliberate, too careful. Just wildlife, Caleb whispered, trying to reassure himself. Still, his hands trembled slightly as he lifted the camera and snapped a photo of the figure. As the shutter clicked, the silhouette froze completely, as though aware of the intrusion. Caleb swallowed hard, watching as the shadow dropped suddenly to all fours and began to crawl forward with bizarre, jerky movements. His blood ran cold. This wasn't an animal. Its form, covered in dark, matted fur, was distorted and misshapen. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles, moving with grotesque fluidity, and its face, what Caleb could see of it, appeared disturbingly human beneath the fur. Panic surged through him, a primal instinct urging him to flee. Yet he remained rooted, compelled by morbid curiosity and the urgency to document. With trembling fingers, Caleb adjusted his zoom, capturing another image, clearer this time, undeniable proof of the abomination crawling toward him. The creature paused again, as though sensing Caleb's fear. For a long moment, it remained utterly still, eyes fixed unwaveringly on him, their strange gleam penetrating the gloom. Caleb felt exposed, vulnerable under that predatory stare. Then, just as abruptly as it appeared, the creature withdrew silently into the fog, vanishing among the trees. Caleb exhaled shakily, body tingling with adrenaline. His mind raced to rationalize the encounter, but explanations eluded him. This was unlike anything he'd witnessed in the chaos of war. It felt more ancient, more primal. Gathering himself, Caleb forced his legs forward, deeper into the valley. His initial fear began mixing with determination and curiosity. He couldn't turn back now. He had to know what this place was hiding, had to capture it, document it, if only to prove to himself he wasn't losing his grip on reality. As he moved on, camera gripped tightly, Caleb failed to notice the subtle rustling that followed behind him, concealed within the mist-shrouded trees. Whisper Hollow had awoken, and it was quietly watching his every step. By late afternoon, Caleb found himself ascending a steep ridge, breathing heavily and wiping sweat from his brow despite the lingering chill. The strange encounter from earlier lingered uneasily in his mind, but his resolve to uncover the secrets of Whisper Hollow pushed him forward. Each step echoed faintly, the crunch of dead leaves beneath his feet, the only reminder that he was still part of the waking world. At the crest of the ridge, Caleb paused, catching his breath. The landscape stretched before him, an endless sea of dense forest, dark and foreboding beneath the dying sun. As he moved forward, his gaze snagged on something strange suspended among the branches. He approached slowly, his stomach tightening with apprehension. Bones. Human bones, strung together with coarse twine, forming grotesque totems that swung gently in the still air. Caleb's throat went dry, a cold dread slithering into his chest. The bones clinked softly together, like chimes whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Below them, claw-like markings gouged deeply into the earth, as if some monstrous creature had declared this territory its own. Caleb quickly raised his camera, capturing the unsettling scene, though each click of the shutter felt disturbingly intrusive, almost disrespectful. He pressed on, guided by morbid curiosity, until he spotted an abandoned structure, an old firewatch tower, its wooden frame rotting, windows shattered, stark against the darkening sky. Deciding it was as safe a place as any, Caleb set up camp near its base, careful to position himself with a clear view in all directions. He built a small fire, the flames flickering nervously, casting twisted shadows across the trees. As night descended, the forest felt eerily silent, the earlier bird calls replaced by an oppressive quiet that seemed to weigh heavily on his chest. Unable to shake a growing sense of unease, Caleb retrieved his camera, scrolling through the day's photographs. The images appeared normal at first glance, foggy lakes, hauntingly beautiful wildlife, but as he examined them more closely, he noticed something unnerving. In several shots, particularly those taken near the bone totems, faint glowing eyes stared out from the darkness, intelligent, malevolent, undeniably human. His heart pounded painfully in his chest as he stared at the glowing orbs, magnified on the screen. Caleb glanced around sharply, paranoia creeping into every shadow surrounding him. He quickly turned off the camera, his fingers trembling slightly. Suddenly, from deep within the darkness of the forest, a faint sound reached his ears, a gentle, rhythmic clicking. Caleb froze, muscles rigid, ears straining to pinpoint the source. The clicking was unmistakably familiar, but impossible. It sounded like the shutter of a camera. "Hello?" Caleb called out, voice shaky, uncertain. The clicking stopped abruptly, replaced by silence so profound it rang in his ears. Caleb stood, turning in a slow circle, eyes scanning the darkened tree line. The quiet felt heavier now, charged with unseen menace. He reached down cautiously, grabbing a thick branch, gripping it tightly as a makeshift weapon. Then, without warning, the clicking resumed, closer this time, circling his camp, yet he heard no footsteps, no rustling leaves or snapping twigs. It moved silently, effortlessly, unseen in the shadows. Caleb's breath grew ragged as fear threatened to overwhelm his composure. "Show yourself," he demanded, voice cracking. The clicking intensified, echoing rapidly around him. Caleb spun, his flashlight beam dancing wildly across the forest, illuminating nothing but endless darkness and twisted branches. His panic heightened when the sound stopped again, replaced by absolute silence. Seconds ticked by agonizingly slow. Caleb's mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Then, directly behind him, the clicking sounded once more. Softly, almost intimately close. Heart thundering, Caleb whirled around, flashlight trembling in his grip. A flash of movement vanished just beyond the edge of the beam, too quick to identify clearly, but undeniably real. His pulse roared in his ears as he struggled to control his breathing, every instinct screaming at him to flee. Instead, with a bravery born of sheer desperation, Caleb stepped toward the fire watchtower, deciding that height and distance might offer some semblance of safety. He ascended the rotting stairs carefully, each step groaning under his weight, threatening collapse. Reaching the top, he barricaded himself inside the tiny observation room, windows offering a clear view of the dark forest below. Settling in, Caleb peered anxiously through the cracked glass. Shadows moved subtly, shapes dancing just beyond clarity. He clutched his camera, more out of habit than usefulness, waiting tensely for the next move. The clicking returned intermittently throughout the night, circling patiently, waiting for him to lower his guard. As dawn finally broke, washing the forest in a ghostly gray light, Caleb's eyes burned with exhaustion. Despite the daylight, he knew the nightmare wasn't over. The forest had seen him now, recognized him, and he had unwittingly become a part of Whisper Hollow's dark history. Caleb woke abruptly, drenched in sweat despite the frigid air within the abandoned fire watchtower. The events from the night before surged back vividly. The clicking noises, the glowing eyes in his photographs, the presence that had stalked him relentlessly. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to flee, urging him towards safety far beyond Whisper Hollow. He grabbed his gear hastily, barely pausing to gather his scattered belongings. As daylight seeped through the cracks in the wooden walls, Caleb descended the creaking steps of the tower cautiously, his legs weak from a night of tension and sleepless dread. The morning mist clung low, twisting around trees and masking familiar landmarks. Anxiety clawed at Caleb's chest as he moved quickly, desperate to reach higher ground where he might orient himself. But Whisper Hollow resisted his escape. Each step Caleb took seemed to distort his surroundings, the forest warping subtly, paths he had noted clearly the day before now vanishing inexplicably. Panic gnawed at the edges of his mind, urging him to quicken his pace, though caution warned against recklessness. After nearly an hour of frantic wandering, Caleb's breath came ragged and shallow. He halted, gasping, realizing with dawning horror he had been walking in circles. The landmarks had shifted unnaturally, as though the forest itself was conspiring to trap him within its sinister embrace. "This can't be happening," he muttered desperately, gripping his camera tightly, the device now his only tether to reality. He spun around, disoriented, searching for a sign, any hint of direction, but found nothing familiar. Even the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy felt twisted, artificial, illuminating the woods in sickly hues. A sudden rustling noise snapped Caleb's attention toward a dense cluster of trees. His heart thundered violently, eyes straining into the gloom. Slowly, something emerged, crawling forward on all fours, a grotesque figure, sickeningly pale and emaciated. Caleb's blood turned icy, breath catching sharply as the creature moved fully into view. Its limbs were elongated and bony, twisted joints protruding sharply beneath taut, sickly white skin. It bore a vaguely ursine form, but the proportions were disturbingly human. Worst of all, the creature's head, a twisted mockery of humanity, had hollow sunken eyes and grotesquely, a metallic flashbulb embedded deeply into its skull, gleaming menacingly in the dim light. The monstrous entity paused, head tilted curiously as if examining Caleb. Terrified yet unable to look away, Caleb raised his camera instinctively, capturing the abomination in a shaky, hurried photograph. Instantly, the flashbulb embedded in its skull burst into life, blinding him momentarily with its brilliance. As Caleb stumbled backward, blinking furiously, the creature mimicked his action perfectly, raising one grotesque limb as if holding an imaginary camera, its mouth opening to produce the chilling sound of a camera shutter. The mocking gesture was unmistakable, and in a chilling moment of realization, Caleb understood. This creature, this horrid amalgamation, fed off the very act of observation. It was a twisted embodiment of those who had come before him, desperate souls who'd sought to uncover Whisper Hollow's secrets, their identities and humanity consumed and distorted into this monstrous guardian of the valley. "Stay back!" Caleb shouted hoarsely, backing away in panic, though deep down he knew such warnings were meaningless. The beast advanced methodically, matching his steps, mirroring his fearful movements with eerie precision. Each panicked glance through his camera's lens only seemed to strengthen the creature, as if each captured image transferred a piece of Caleb's very essence into its monstrous form. Frantically, Caleb turned and sprinted blindly, abandoning caution as pure survival instinct took hold. Branches clawed at him, tearing at his clothes and skin, leaving trails of blood behind, but he didn't slow down. He ran wildly, propelled by pure adrenaline, stumbling and rising, desperate to escape. Yet each direction he turned led him deeper into the twisted heart of Whisper Hollow, the landscape endlessly shifting, taunting him with illusions of escape. Exhaustion gnawed at his limbs, threatening collapse, but Caleb refused to stop, driven by primal fear and a dwindling hope for survival. Suddenly he stumbled into an open clearing, eerily quiet and bathed in unnatural silence. Panting heavily, Caleb raised his eyes, only to realize with numbing dread that he was back at the same abandoned fire watchtower. The forest had guided him, trapped him deliberately, returning him to this point of despair. With a trembling hand, Caleb slowly turned, feeling a presence looming just behind him. He lifted his camera shakily, determined for one final act of defiance. In the camera's viewfinder, Caleb's breath caught. Standing directly behind him, illuminated by the dim morning light, was the pale, emaciated creature, its flashbulb head blazing brightly, eyes filled with hungry anticipation. The last thing Caleb heard was the familiar, chilling sound of a shutter clicking closed, sealing his fate as the valley claimed another photographer, another soul absorbed into the horrifying mystery of Whisper Hollow. Days later, the search party from the small town near Whisper Hollow cautiously navigated the dense forest. Volunteers, seasoned woodsmen, and even local police officers moved quietly, their voices low, strained by the oppressive atmosphere of the valley. Whisper Hollow had always been spoken of in hushed tones, a place wrapped in superstition and warnings passed through generations. Sheriff Paul Harper led the group, his face stern beneath the brim of his hat, eyes weary from sleepless nights. He knew the valley's reputation well, having grown up hearing stories about those who disappeared among its twisted trails. Yet even he felt a deep unease as they approached the abandoned fire watchtower Caleb Morris had marked on his map, the last known location of the missing photographer. "Anything?" Harper asked, directing his flashlight beam across the campsite where Caleb's belongings lay scattered haphazardly. A weathered sleeping bag, extinguished fire pit, and scattered camera accessories hinted at the photographer's abrupt departure. One of the deputies shook his head grimly, examining the scattered items. "Nothing yet, Sheriff. It's like he just vanished. No struggle, no blood, nothing to suggest an attack." "Keep looking," Harper instructed, suppressing a chill that raced down his spine. His gaze settled uneasily on the forest's shadows, silently aware of eyes watching from within the darkness. "Sheriff!" called another volunteer urgently, his voice edged with surprise. Harper hurried toward the sound, stepping carefully around protruding roots and sharp rocks until he reached the young man standing at the base of an old, twisted tree. Hanging from a thick branch, barely swaying in the stale air, was Caleb's camera. It dangled by its strap, untouched by wildlife or weather, pristine and eerily out of place. Harper reached up, carefully unhooking the device, examining it in his hand. The camera felt strangely heavy, its cold metal body radiating a foreboding chill. The search party quickly regrouped around the sheriff, watching as he powered on the device, anxious yet compelled to see the last moments captured by Caleb. The screen flickered to life, illuminating Harper's grim face. The images started normally enough. Pictures of the surreal beauty of Whisper Hollow's landscapes, stunning shots of the fog-shrouded lakes, haunting wildlife, and strange ethereal creatures captured in fleeting glimpses. But as Harper continued scrolling, a growing unease spread among the group. The photos turned darker, filled with ominous shapes and shadows lurking at the edges of each frame. Then an audible gasp rose from the crowd as Harper's thumb paused over a chilling image. A humanoid figure, pale and grotesque, its distorted features illuminated by a flash. The beastly face stared directly into the camera, its sunken eyes wide, gleaming with malicious intent. Harper felt bile rise in his throat but continued through the photos, compelled by a sickening curiosity. Each subsequent image depicted Caleb's descent deeper into madness and desperation. The photographs became more frantic, distorted, blurred by motion, as Caleb had clearly been fleeing. The final image, however, froze Harper's breath entirely. Caleb Morris stared directly into the lens, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a silent scream. But the angle was wrong. It had been taken from directly behind him, impossibly capturing his own terrified face in perfect detail. Harper felt his knees weaken as murmurs of disbelief spread through the search party, their collective fear palpable. "Good Lord," a deputy whispered, shaking visibly, stepping back from the camera as though it might harm him. Sheriff Harper gathered himself quickly, pushing the camera firmly into his pocket. "We're done here," he announced, voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "No one is to come near Whisper Hollow again. Spread the word. As of today, this valley is off limits, completely." No one argued or questioned his authority. They all felt it, a dark, oppressive presence watching them, hidden within the trees, waiting patiently for the next intruder foolish enough to trespass. Back in town, rumors spread rapidly, whispered in fearful voices in the tavern, shops, and homes. The mystery of Caleb Morris became another dark chapter added to the chilling lore of Whisper Hollow. Locals now avoided even speaking the valley's name, crossing themselves and locking doors tightly against the night, as though simple locks could hold back the unnatural evil lurking just beyond their town's limits. Years passed, and nature reclaimed the trails leading into Whisper Hollow. The state erected barriers and warning signs, closing off access entirely, declaring the land dangerous due to unstable terrain. But despite the efforts to erase its dark history, locals knew the truth. They remembered the lost souls, captured forever in horrifying stillness, absorbed by something ancient and ravenous. On still nights when the wind paused and silence blanketed the sleepy town, some residents claimed to hear faint, rhythmic clicking deep within the valley's forbidden woods, the chilling echo of a shudder, endlessly searching for its next victim. Caleb Morris had sought to capture Whisper Hollow's secrets, unaware that it was he who would become its captive. Forever trapped within the photographs, he risked everything